In a dimly lit antique shop, shadows danced on the walls, whispering secrets of forgotten times. Dust hung in the air like a veil, and the smell of aged wood and leather filled the space. Among the many curious items on the shelves was a doll unlike any other. Its porcelain skin glimmered faintly, but its glassy eyes held a haunting gaze that seemed to follow anyone who dared to look too closely. This was no ordinary doll. It was said to be cursed, a vessel for a dark spirit. The doll was tied to the legend of the Lion Man, a creature once feared and revered in the nearby village. Many years ago, the Lion Man had roamed the earth, a man with the spirit of a lion trapped within him. He was known for his strength and wild nature, but met a tragic fate at the hands of those who could not understand him. Betrayed and alone, the Lion Man was said to have cursed the land before his spirit was bound to the doll, forever seeking revenge on those who disturbed his resting place. As the sun set and darkness enveloped the shop, the air grew heavy with an unsettling energy. The shop owner, a frail old man, glanced nervously at the doll. He had seen too many souls fall victim to its curse, their lives twisted by the wrath of the Lion Man. Yet, the doll remained on the shelf, waiting patiently for its next unsuspecting victim. In the silence, the faint sound of growling could be heard, echoing from deep within the shadows, a warning that was too easy to ignore. Little did anyone know, the curse was alive and hungry, ready to unleash the Lion Man's fury on anyone foolish enough to take it home. The cursed doll had a story as twisted as its gaze. Crafted by a desperate artist named Victor, it was meant to be a masterpiece, a beautiful doll that would bring joy to any child. But Victor had a darker motive. Haunted by visions of the Lion Man, he believed that capturing the spirit of this legendary creature would grant him unimaginable power and fame. With each stroke of his brush and each piece of fabric he stitched, he poured his own essence into the doll, binding it to the Lion Man's tormented soul. As Victor worked day and night, he became increasingly obsessed with the doll, neglecting his health and relationships. The villagers watched in horror as he spiraled into madness, convinced that the doll would bring him success. But with each passing day, the spirit of the Lion Man grew restless within its porcelain shell. One fateful night, driven by an insatiable hunger for control, Victor held a dark ritual, hoping to fully merge his spirit with that of the Lion Man. But the ritual went horribly wrong. Instead of gaining power, he awakened the wrath of the Lion Man, who was furious at being trapped in the doll. In a violent rage, the Lion Man exacted his revenge, leading Victor to a gruesome demise. The once promising artist met a tragic end, his lifeless body found curled around the doll, which remained eerily untouched. The villagers, fearful of the doll's dark energy, sealed it away in the shop, hoping to rid themselves of its curse. But the doll was destined to remain, a silent witness to its creator's downfall, waiting patiently for someone to unlock the horrors contained within. And so, the tale of the cursed doll began, a story of ambition turned to ash, and a spirit trapped between worlds, hungry for vengeance against anyone who dared to disturb its peace. Emma was a young woman with a passion for antiques. She loved exploring flea markets and dusty shops, searching for hidden treasures that told stories of the past. Her small apartment was filled with unique items she had collected over the years, each piece a fragment of history. But nothing fascinated her quite like the stories behind cursed objects. She was captivated by the idea that some items held secrets that could change lives forever. One rainy afternoon, Emma found herself in the very antique shop that housed the cursed doll. The moment she stepped inside, a chill ran down her spine. The air was thick with dust, and the dim light made the shop feel almost otherworldly. She wandered from shelf to shelf, admiring the strange artifacts, until something caught her eye, a glimmer of porcelain peeking out from behind a dusty curtain. As she approached, she felt an inexplicable pull toward the doll. Its eyes seemed to draw her in, and she was mesmerized by its delicate features. But there was something unsettling about it, something that whispered of danger. The shop owner, noticing her interest, warned her, "That doll is cursed. Many have tried to take it home, but none have returned the same." Emma brushed off his warning, dismissing it as mere superstition. She was a rational person after all. Driven by curiosity and a sense of adventure, she decided to buy the doll, convinced that she could uncover its secrets. Little did she know that her fascination would soon spiral into a nightmare. As Emma left the shop, clutching the doll tightly, The shop owner watched her with a look of concern. He had seen this before, an innocent curiosity that would soon turn into terror. The doll, still in her hands, seemed to hum with a dark energy, ready to unleash the wrath of the Lion Man upon its new owner. The moment Emma set the doll on her shelf, an unsettling energy filled her apartment. At first, it was just a strange sensation, like being watched. As night fell, the shadows in the room grew longer and the air turned thick and heavy. Emma brushed off her unease, convincing herself it was simply her imagination playing tricks on her. But as days passed, the odd occurrences began. It started with small things. A book she had placed on the table found lying on the floor, a whisper of movement from the corner of her eye. At night, the doll seemed to change positions, shifting ever so slightly, as if it had a mind of its own. Each morning, Emma would convince herself it was just her tired mind, but deep down, fear began to creep in. Then the nightmares began. In her dreams, Emma found herself in a dark forest surrounded by thick fog. The growls of a creature echoed through the trees, and she could feel its presence, heavy and predatory. A figure appeared, a massive lion man with eyes that burned like coals. His face twisted in anger. He seemed to reach out for her, but she always woke up before he could touch her. Desperate for answers, Emma turned to the internet, researching the legend of the Lion Man. She uncovered tales of a creature who roamed the earth, betrayed by humans and cursed to wander in search of vengeance. The more she learned, the more the pieces fell into place. The doll was not just a trinket, it was a conduit for the Lion Man's spirit, a link to his suffering and rage. One evening, driven by curiosity and fear, Emma decided to confront the doll. She sat in front of it, her heart racing, and demanded to know what it wanted. As the words left her lips, a chill swept through the room, and she felt an overwhelming presence as if the air around her thickened with anger. The doll's eyes seemed to glow, and Emma was struck by a terrifying realization. She had awakened something ancient and powerful. That night, the atmosphere in her apartment changed dramatically. The growls that had previously been muffled now resonated loudly, shaking the walls. Emma felt trapped, ensnared in a web of her own making, as the line between reality and nightmare began to blur. What had started as a fascination had turned into a horrifying reality, and Emma found herself at the center of a dark curse that threatened to consume her whole. Desperate to rid herself of the doll and the terror it brought, Emma decided to confront the spirit of the Lion Man directly. She gathered candles and sage, hoping to perform a cleansing ritual she had read about online. With the doll placed in the center of her living room, she lit the candles, the flickering flames casting eerie shadows on the walls. Her heart raced as she closed her eyes and began to chant the words she had memorized. As she spoke, the air around her grew cold, and a heavy silence enveloped the room. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, and Emma opened her eyes to find the doll glowing faintly. The atmosphere shifted, and a low growl filled the air, vibrating through her very bones. The lights flickered violently, and Emma felt a surge of fear wash over her. In that moment, the spirit of the Lion Man emerged, a dark, towering figure cloaked in shadows. His eyes blazed with rage, and he let out a bone-chilling roar that echoed through the room. Emma stumbled backward, feeling the weight of his presence press against her. She had awoken him from his slumber, and now he was furious. "Why have you disturbed me?" His voice boomed, deep and resonant, shaking the walls of her apartment. Emma tried to explain her intentions, but the Lion Man's wrath was palpable. He pointed a clawed finger toward her, and in that instant, she saw flashes of his tragic past. The betrayal, the pain, the longing for freedom. The energy in the room surged, and the candles flickered wildly. Emma felt herself being pulled into a vision, witnessing the events that had led to the Lion Man's curse. She understood that the doll was not just a trinket, it was a prison for his tortured soul, and she had become an unwitting key to his release. With her heart pounding, Emma pleaded for forgiveness, but the Lion Man was not interested in mercy. "You have awakened my rage," he growled, and the room trembled as shadows closed in around her. "You shall suffer as I have suffered." As the walls warped and twisted, Emma realized she had made a grave mistake. The doll was not merely a cursed object. It was a conduit for the Lion Man's pain, and now she was trapped in his nightmare. The shadows engulfed her, and with one final roar, the Lion Man claimed her as his own, binding her spirit to the doll forever. The candles extinguished, plunging the room into darkness, leaving only the doll sitting silently on the floor, its eyes glinting ominously in the gloom. The curse had not only claimed another victim, but had also found a new vessel. Emma would now share in the eternal wrath of the Lion Man, her screams silenced, forever trapped within the porcelain shell. The following day, the sun rose over the city, casting a warm glow that illuminated Emma's apartment. But inside, an eerie stillness hung in the air, a stark contrast to the bustling world outside. The doll sat on the floor, seemingly untouched, but its presence now carried an undeniable weight. Emma was gone, swallowed by the darkness that had consumed her. Weeks passed, and the antique shop continued to operate, the owner unaware of the new horror lurking within the doll. Customers would come and go, admiring the various artifacts, but none dared to approach the cursed doll. Its reputation kept even the bravest souls at bay, whispering of the Lion Man's wrath. One afternoon, a couple entered the shop, intrigued by its curiosities. They stumbled upon the doll, captivated by its beauty despite the unsettling tales. Ignoring the owner's warnings, they purchased the doll, laughing at what they deemed old wives' tales. Little did they know they were bringing home more than just a doll. They were inviting a nightmare into their lives. That night, the couple placed the doll on their mantle, unaware of the malevolent force it contained. As darkness fell, strange sounds began to echo through their home. Soft whispers turned into frantic growls, and the shadows seemed to thicken, swirling around them like a storm. They exchanged worried glances, the laughter of earlier fading into dread. Suddenly, the temperature in the room plummeted. The couple found themselves engulfed in an icy grip of fear. The doll's eyes glowed, and a chilling presence filled the air. The Lion Man had awakened once more, and he was ready to unleash his fury. In a blinding flash, the spirit of the Lion Man emerged, a terrifying figure that towered over them. His roar shook the very foundation of the house, sending furniture crashing to the ground. The couple screamed, their laughter replaced by terror as they realized the horror they had invited into their lives. As they tried to escape, the shadows closed in around them, trapping them in a web of darkness. One by one, their screams echoed through the night, swallowed by the eerie silence that followed. The Lion Man had claimed new victims, and the curse of the doll continued to spread, feeding on the fear and despair of those who dared to disturb it. With each passing day, the legend of the cursed doll grew, and the whispers of the Lion Man's wrath echoed in the hearts of the townsfolk. The doll remained in the couple's home, now a symbol of their fate, waiting patiently for the next unsuspecting soul to unleash its terror upon. And so the tale of the cursed doll and the Lion Man lived on, a dark reminder of the dangers that lie within forgotten objects and the horrors that await those who seek to awaken them. The cycle of terror would never end as long as the doll remained, eternally hungry for new souls to claim. As the sun set on the quiet town, a haunting silence fell over the antique shop, now a place of dark legend and whispered fears. The cursed doll, with its glassy eyes and porcelain skin, sat silently on the shelf, waiting for the next curious soul to wander in. Its power was undeniable, and its connection to the Lion Man's wrath had become a chilling tale passed down through generations. The townspeople, once oblivious to the horrors lurking in their midst, now shared wary glances whenever they walked past the shop. Some warned their children to stay away, while others exchanged stories of the doll's previous victims, their voices tinged with dread. The legend of the Lion Man grew more fearsome with each telling, feeding on the anxiety and curiosity that surrounded it. But the true horror lay in the knowledge that the curse could strike anyone. Those who scoffed at the warnings, like the couple who had dared to bring the doll home, learned too late that some objects are better left undisturbed. The Lion Man, with his tragic past and insatiable hunger for revenge, would always find a way to claim new souls, forever trapped in a cycle of horror. As night enveloped the town, the wind howled, carrying whispers of the Lion Man's rage through the streets. The cursed doll remained, its eyes reflecting the moonlight, silently awaiting its next victim. Emma's spirit lingered within, forever intertwined with the wrath of the Lion Man, a chilling reminder of the dangers that lie in curiosity, in the darkness that lurks within seemingly innocent objects. And so, the tale continues, a never-ending cycle of terror, where the cursed doll awaits, ready to unleash its horrors on those who dare to disturb the peace of the Lion Man's restless spirit. In the shadows, the echoes of his growl linger, a warning that will never be forgotten.